So when a relationship goes through a rough patch, maybe your partner says that they need space, maybe they saying that they want to break up with you, maybe they have broken up with you, but you are in a place where you're trying to reconnect, you're desperate to figure this out, get this relationship repaired and back on track. You're ready to put in the work. What a lot of people can do is send a long text explaining your feelings, promising to change, or asking for some sort of closure, asking for another shot, and you feel them pulling further and further away. This instinct to justify or fix things actually widens the gap when it comes to trying to repair a relationship. And there is a psychological reason this happens every single time. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the hidden psychological bias that is blocking you from repairing your relationship. And then I'm going to talk about the communication framework that rebuilds connection. And this is going to be the same techniques that has helped thousands of clients that I've worked with rebuild relationships, even when their partners had completely emotionally checked out. So the first question is why? Why do most relationship repair attempts backfire? You know, a lot of people assume that when going through a breakup or your partner's asking for space, that some sort of apology or a well-worded explanation is going to fix everything. But the reality is that these strategies, these tactics, these plans, these gut actions often make things worse. Instead of rebuilding that connection with your partner, it actually starts to push them further away. Your partner or ex-partner starts to feel that gap between you growing even wider, and it starts to reinforce their original decision to start to walk away. So I want to break down why this happens and how you can stop it. So when emotions are running high, the biggest communication mistake people make is jumping into this problem-solving mode. So this is when you're trying to reach out to your partner, you're trying to repair the relationship, and they start giving you some tough truths, some constructive criticism, help, maybe even it's negative feedback shouting at you, and your gut can make you interrupt your partner to clarify your intentions or quickly offer a solution, make a promise to say, hey, look, I've realized that I've done this wrong and I'm going to change. I'm going to figure this out. Don't worry about it. Trying to give some sort of solution to their concerns. Maybe even without realizing it, you can defend yourself and get defensive against accusations, or you minimize their emotions to reduce this tension within conversations. Now, this response feels natural in the moment, but it's really counterproductive. And the reason is that they shift the focus onto your feelings, not onto your partner's feelings. For example, if your partner says, you never listened to me in the relationship, and your first instinct is to explain how much you did listen, or the times when you did listen, or the times when they didn't listen, this sends the message to them, you're wrong to feel this way. This invalidates their feeling. And no real repair can start when your partner or ex-partner sharing their pain feels dismissed, feels pushed aside. As human beings, when we feel unheard, our frustration amplifies. So rather than calming this conflict, your words and your tone can unexpectedly deepen this hurt, and this dismisses and minimizes your partner's feelings. Ultimately, this produces more what we call expectancy bias, which I've done a deeper dive, which I'll link to in the up above and in the description down below. This forces your partner to fight harder to prove their feelings are valid. So if you're jumping in to defend yourself, it makes you seem like you care more about being right than understanding their perspective. So when it comes to effective communication, this isn't about winning or losing, it's about creating emotional safety. But actions like these replace safety with invalidation, which actually destroys emotional safety. It makes repairing trust, which is ultimately what is broken in a breakup, nearly impossible. But the biggest blocker to repairing a relationship and communicating with your ex-partner is often how we excuse our own actions while harshly judging our partners. This is what my members and I call the actor-observer bias. So just briefly, the actor-observer bias is when you justify your behavior by blaming external circumstances. But when you look at your partner's actions, you judge them based as part of their personality. For example, if you're late to a dinner that your partner planned, you might explain, well, I was tied up in work. But if they're late, then you think to yourself, well, they don't care about me. Maybe they're cheating. This just kind of proves that they never care about the relationship. And ultimately, this bias is like looking through a distorted mirror. Your own actions seem reasonable, but theirs feel personal to you. This is a mental kind of shortcut that leads to a lot of unfair assumptions, and it makes your partner ultimately feel misunderstood. So when you're communicating with your partner or your ex-partner in moments where they're trying to express their feelings, it can become really easy to justify your own behavior, defending yourself or explaining away your actions in the relationship when you're hearing these tough truths. And at the same time, what happens is that you question your partner's intentions. You create resentment within yourself, and you start to widen this emotional gap between you because you're not putting yourself into your partner's shoes and you're seeing things from your own perspective, not their perspective. So understanding this actor-observer bias and breaking through it is going to be the first thing that you need to do before you start communicating with your partner. If you're trying to repair the relationship, if you still are filled with this actor-observer bias, then you're not going to be able to get on their level. You're not going to be able to show that you understand their feelings. And ultimately, that is going to be the biggest blocker to repairing and rebuilding and ultimately reconciling the relationship. We all like to think that we have great communication skills, but the key to repairing your relationship isn't about what you say. It's about how you listen. This is something that 99% of people overlook, or they think that they have a gist of it, but they don't truly know how to do it. But this is ultimately the one thing that stands between you and rebuilding the connection to your partner. And the best examples of this are therapists. So therapeutic listening, which is what therapists do, flips the script on typical conversations. If you've ever been to therapy and you've had a really good therapist, you'll understand the difference it makes in having someone understand you, in feeling heard, and how empowering that is to coming up with real solutions to overcoming your problems. But most people don't do this. Most people will sit there in conversations and they will start to prepare their response. They think that they're listening, but they're listening to respond rather than listening to understand. So instead of preparing a response or planning your next point, it's about fully tuning in to what the other person is saying. And more importantly, it's about validating their emotions without rushing to fix anything. And when you do this, something really powerful happens. They feel safe enough to drop their defenses and share what's really going on beneath the surface. So if your partner or ex-partner is resisting the idea of getting back with you in a relationship or starting again, oftentimes it means that they don't feel safe enough to share the true feelings of why. So they'll say things like surface level things to dismiss the conversation. So they'll just say, well, it's over, it's done. There's no point in talking about it. I don't want to talk about it. It's hopeless. We've tried, we failed. Let's just move on. But by using therapeutic listening, this builds the emotional safety for your partner to truly open up, to dig deeper into their fears, their hopes, their dreams. And this builds the emotional safety, which is the foundation of reconciliation. For example, if you're trying to repair a relationship and your partner or ex-partner says, you never cared about me, you never cared about the relationship. If you did, you wouldn't have done all the things that you did. A lot of people would craft some sort of defense. They'd say, that's not true. I do care. Here's all the evidence that shows that I did care and I do care about you. Even though this has good intentions, you're not truly listening. And this invalidation destroys emotional safety. However, people like therapists use techniques that help us to break that cycle. And a big part of that is active listening. So you may have heard of active listening before, but understanding what it actually looks like is very, very different. So one tool of active listening is kind of reflecting back what your partner is saying, but adding depth to it. Kind of repeating your partner's thoughts in your own words to confirm that you understand. So let's say, for example, your partner says, I feel ignored when you're on your phone. A basic level of active listening would be, so when I'm distracted, it kind of maybe makes you feel unimportant. This simple step slows the conversation down and it ensures a mutual understanding before emotions can escalate. And this is replacing defensiveness, justification. Another part of this technique is emotion labeling. So this is identifying the feeling that the other person is expressing. And this is kind of what we touched on in the last one. So if your partner seems frustrated, you could say, it sounds like maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. And this does two things. It shows that you're paying attention to their emotions, and it also gives them a chance to clarify if needed. It shows that you're prioritizing understanding their feelings above all else. And these small acknowledgements over time build trust because your partner feels seen and not judged. And this is really important. This really, really matters because when someone feels heard, their defenses fall. And all of these walls that were in the way of rebuilding the relationship that seemed impossible to overcome, they start to crumble. True listening encourages your partner to share more. And more often than not, this reveals deeper concerns or fears, the fears and worries that are blocking reconciliation. So this doesn't just ease tension, it creates openness. And this is one of the keys to reconciliation. Reconciliation becomes possible because you feel like you're on the same team as each other. So building this emotional safety through this therapeutic listening becomes the launching point for real solutions. The good news is that you don't need to be a therapist to practice this. This therapeutic listening is a skill that anyone can learn. And by breaking conversations down into small, deliberate steps, you can de-escalate this tension and start to rebuild this safety by uncovering the real feelings beneath the surface. And there's a very simple framework that you can learn, which is structured and powerful and proven to, over time, rebuild this trust, even when trust feels completely shattered. And once you start to master this, it ripples into every connection you have. But most importantly, it reshapes how you approach the relationship, and it shows your partner that things in the relationship can change. So, what is this framework for therapeutic listening? Well, there's a very simple 4-step framework that therapists use, which is a kind of a blueprint to build trust, to create emotional safety, and ultimately lead conversations to a place where real solutions can be found. And this framework doesn't just focus on changing your partner's perspective or solving some immediate issue. This focuses on what truly matters, which is building emotional safety. It prioritizes this emotional safety and creates this foundation for real understanding. Because ultimately, if you don't fully understand a problem, how can you present any solutions to solving it, right? So think of this framework as a kind of a structured guide for navigating tough conversations. And again, this is so crucial to repairing a relationship. If you're mastering this framework, then you're able to show to your partner that things can be different because you're willing to prioritize understanding above all else. And that hopelessness that your partner is feeling will start to shift. So the first step is to reflect back. So start by reflecting back what your partner or your ex-partner is saying. This means paraphrasing their words to show that you're truly listening. So when emotions run high, we can often misinterpret each other, right? So for example, if your partner says, I feel like I'm doing everything in this relationship, or I feel like I did everything in the relationship, instead of jumping in with your perspective, being able to navigate calm, active listening with something along the lines of, I guess you're feeling like the balance within the relationship isn't fair, and maybe you're feeling that you're carrying all the weight of the relationship. Is that kind of along the right lines? This step ensures that you've understood them correctly, but it also helps them feel heard. So above all else, misunderstandings can escalate tension within relationship repair. This active listening, this paraphrasing, sets the tone for cooperation. Step 2 is to start asking more questions. So once you've confirmed understanding, the next step is to start to invite a deeper reflection through questions. Rather than making assumptions about what they're feeling, what they're doing, what they want, asking questions encourages your partner to elaborate further on what they're saying, and it starts to help guide them to uncover underlying emotions. So instead of asking things like, are you upset with me? This kind of leads to just a yes or no answer. You can try something along the lines of, I feel like you're still kind of feeling upset with me about this XYZ situation. But maybe it's not just that. Maybe there's other stuff as well happening. I know you've got a lot of stress with work. Tell me a bit more about that. This shifts the focus from surface level complaints to deeper feelings. These questions show that you care about understanding their emotions, not just the problem itself. Step 3 is to validate their emotions. So validation is where breakthroughs often happen, not just externally, but internally as well, acknowledging that their feelings make sense in the context of their experience, even if you, as yourself, see things differently. So for instance, if your partner says, I feel like I've been invisible this whole relationship, you can respond with something along the lines of, I could see why you'd feel that way, especially after the last few months of our relationship. Work just absolutely took priority in my life, and I stopped really showing that I gave a shit about you. So I feel like I would feel invisible too if I were you. It makes complete sense why you'd be feeling hurt. This simple but powerful acknowledgement not only dissolves tension, but it also shows that you're taking the time to think and process your partner's feelings above all else. When your partner feels like their emotions aren't being dismissed, they naturally lower their defenses. And validation reduces resentment because it removes the need to prove their feelings are valid. The next step is to explore ambivalence. Emotions are complex, and these mixed feelings that often underlie relationship challenges are not usually clear-cut. Love and frustration can coexist, and understanding these seeming contradictions is key. So digging deeper into this ambivalence and this complexity is going to be crucial. For example, I could understand that you've invested so much time into this relationship and you tried so hard and you poured your heart and soul into it, and it got to a point where it felt hopeless. So I can understand why you'd want to walk away, but I could also understand how there's still so much invested in it. So there'd be part of you that wants to maybe keep that connection going, but maybe that isn't what you're feeling. Tell me a little bit more about how you're feeling right now. Digging deeper into these clarifying questions over time can help to clarify what is preventing resolution, and it can highlight the things that need to change. The goal isn't to solve everything immediately, but to understand the conflicts, the worries, the fears, the feelings that your partner is feeling. So here's how it can all come together. So let's say your partner says, you never cared about me, you don't care about me anymore. You can start by reflecting. So it feels like you're saying, it feels like I've stopped putting effort into the relationship. Is that kind of where you're coming from? Then if your partner says yes, then you can ask, what is it that has been bothering you the most about that? What is it that has been the biggest eye-opening moment about that? And then when they respond, you can validate their response. I can understand why you'd feel that way. It would hurt to feel like you come second in the relationship. And then finally, you can explore ambivalence. I can see how part of you still wants to rebuild a little bit of this. But, I understand that there's probably so much holding you back from fully trusting me again. It can be so hard to really rebuild back that trust after so many years of it being eroded over time. This process shifts the focus from defensiveness to rebuilding that connection. You're coming from a place of non-judgment, and you're showing your partner that you're more interested in taking the time to understand than you are to fix. And this framework may feel structured at first, but it can become second nature over time with practice and using this powerful tool for repairing relationships. Being able to master this and use this as your default is going to be really, really crucial for repairing a relationship. Once you start to rewire the way that you communicate, this is where you start to undo the damage that has been done to the relationship over time, and this becomes the foundation for the repair. But it doesn't stop there. This is why the actor-observer bias is so crucial. Being able to overcome this actor-observer bias is always going to be the first step. Learning how to reprogram yourself to start putting yourself into your partner's shoes above all else is going to enable you to deepen your active listening skills. And this is why it's so crucial not to just learn one skill. It's multiple skills that all work hand in hand. And this is what so many of my members have found, is that learning these different layers of skills and being able to iterate and grow all of these skills together is going to be the key to reconciling and repairing your relationship. And if you do want to join us, then join the Relationship Bootcamp, where you'll learn the same steps and tools that all my members start with to start repairing, rebuilding, and regrowing their relationships. Ultimately, the key to reconciliation is stacking these skills and being able to show over time that not only are you willing to use them, you're also willing to master them. And that's what makes the difference in rebuilding trust. So if you want to join the Relationship Bootcamp, then just click on the link in the description to grab your spot. And this ultimately becomes about standards. I've actually done a deeper dive video on relationship standards specifically, which I'll link to on the screen. But raising your standards in relationships as a default is going to be crucial to repairing your current relationship. You cannot repair a relationship without raising your own standards first. Once you start to raise your own standards, you start to set the standards for both you and your partner long term. And this starts to bring down this expectancy bias over time as well. So I'm going to leave you with that deeper dive video on relationship standards, and I'll see you over there.